Well, hi everyone. I'm John Retlin with a retro review of WWE Raw from May 1st of 2000. This is a viewer request from Robert Thurman. You told me it was your birthday today. Happy birthday. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you have a great birthday and really appreciate you for watching. And thank you for suggesting this one because I forgot how much fun this episode was, coming fresh off of Backlash with a really hot crowd in Baltimore and a rich history going all the way back to the Jim Crockett promotion era and into the modern era. And this is a pretty fun episode. Now, I do also want to say that if you guys want to, if anyone else wants to suggest a retro review show, wrestling event, movie, whatever it is, drop it in the comments and I will do what I can. I just can't promise I can get to all of them in a timely manner because I am working and I already have the Thunder and Nitro episodes to do. And maybe I'll do select Raw and SmackDown episodes, but I'm only one man, but thank you guys very much for tuning in. And Robert, once again, thank you very much for suggesting this. As I forgot how much fun I enjoyed this episode because from beginning to end, hot goddamn crowd. And we start off with Edge and Christian on commentary with Lawler and JR. And the Dudley Boys versus TNA Backlash rematch. Fuck anybody that bought that pay-per-view. Wait, I kid, because you had to tune into the pay-per-view to see Trish put through a table as the crowd roared. Hooray! Women are getting treated badly on WWE programming. Good thing that doesn't happen now, right? Right? Wait, well, okay. They're not being put through tables, except by other women. But anyway, Edge and Christian are talking about using wrestling terms. They're going to do run-ins and they're going to shoot with everybody. This was after Russo had already left and was running WCW into the ground, along with the AOL Time Warner merger. And I'm going to save that for the Nitro and Thunder reviews, along with the pay-per-view reviews. Oh dear, I've got a lot of retro content to do for the rest of the year. So they offer an open challenge because they've beaten every tag team already. And they're like, well, what the fuck else can we do? So Dudley's eventually, hit the 3D, but they do a run-in, Edge and Christian do. Unprettier to Devon, test covers. So they get a bit of revenge, but Trish isn't out there because she was put through a goddamn table, so she's convalescing at home. And then next segment, we get the McMahon-Helmsley regime, and we get a lot of asshole chants before the music even ends. Before the music even goddamn ends, like they're chanting asshole at Vince. Triple H goes over the main event stuff, how The Rock won, calls out JR saying, oh, you said the game was over. Nope, the game isn't over. It's just beginning. They chant slut at Stephanie. Stephanie was also an insufferable twat even back then and is even worse now. And she hasn't even been on TV for a while. But you know what? By God, it was great to hate on the McMahon-Helmsley regime at this point. It's just a shame that it went on forever at this point. It did kind of make 2000 TV a little bit rough, but you know what? At least the crowds were hotter and the ratings were a lot higher, and it justified it because you wanted to tune in to see them get their asses kicked, or if they got the advantage, you wanted to see what was going to happen for The Rock or Austin or whoever, Mick Foley, Commissioner Foley, which he's going to be coming up actually pretty soon on this. I would almost review all these 2000 episodes, but I just don't have the time. But anyway, Vince calls out Austin, says, oh, Stone Cold did this. Linda reinstated Earl Hebner, said about Linda that Triple H was going to pedigree her, and Triple H said, I wasn't going to do that. But Vince says, well, that's him. That's not me. He was going to assault his wife. That's good. No, that's not good at all. And then, again, calls out Earl Hebner, calls out The Rock, says a steel cage match is going to be happening for the championship, but who's he going to face? Who's Rock going to face? Well, if you read the description, you already, on the network, you already know, or if you've seen this episode, you know. Crash Holly shows up in the parking garage. Parking attendant says, we'll take care of your car, no problem. Crash Holly is the 24/7 hardcore champion. Well, the hardcore champion with the 24/7 rule. When the 24/7 rule was good, as opposed to 24/7 championship now. The law attendant tries attacking him, but then gets locked in the trunk. I hope he got let out at some point, because otherwise Crash Holly murdered somebody on TV and nobody pressed charges. It's a real shame about Crash Holly passing away in 2003. He was only 33, 34. He really made the 24/7 rule in the hardcore division fun. So we then get Too Cool versus the Hardys. Grandmaster Sexay back from knee surgery. I think he had it just after Mania 2000. It must have been minor surgery because he was back within a month. So Matt at one point stops Scotty's worm once, but not twice. And eventually, after interrupting the double team maneuver from the Hardys, a sidekick, and Grandmaster Sexay gets the pin on Matt. Cool. Okay, they dance afterwards. The wrestling was kind of inconsequential, even though you did have a hot main event. And they had a good amount of storyline cohesion here. So we get Vince talking to Earl Hebner. He called him a sniveling little shit, said, you better stay out of my business. Bad things happen to people that get in my business. He must hate the septic service because they always get up in his business. Hardy har. So, the Cat and Jacqueline versus Ivory and Terry. Boy, I like 3 of the people out of this. And the other one is the Cat. The Cat was one of the most embarrassing women to ever be involved in wrestling. It was only, ever cheered on, really, because she was dating and or married to Lawler at this time. I don't remember when they got married. I don't really care. But she was pretty much an embarrassment. Jacqueline, legit tough. Terry did the best she could. Terry should have never been involved in the ring, and I think she would agree with that. But she was a great promo. Great manager is Alexandra York in WCW, and great manager for Goldust for a number of years. And they moved her into being a backstage interviewer. I think it's just a real shame that they didn't capitalize on her being a manager a little bit more. She did she did manage Saturn, which was weird. The whole moppy thing, that was ridiculous. But Ivory, I like Ivory. Ivory is quite good. Ivory, lives in my state. And Ivory is a pretty damn good performer. The problem is, by this point, WCW was not utilizing their women at all. WWE had some talented women, but weren't utilizing them at all. They were just in bra and panty segments and all this stuff and everything. It was fucking ridiculous. It was really goddamn ridiculous, especially when you had Jacqueline and Ivory, 2 talented performers, and Terry, somebody that could have been used better. And the Cat for what she was worth, which was absolutely nothing. So it didn't last long, and Cat and Terry rolled down the ramp at one point. Hooray! Misogynistic. Cat pinned Terry after some bullshit. And JR says, talk about Silicon Valley. So it's not just Lawler that makes the comments about the women. I mean, to be fair, there were a lot of women that had implants at that point, because that was a WWE edict. It was the only way they could get on TV. They couldn't get by on ability and looks alone. They had to enhance those looks. I will never understand that mindset. So, you got the McMahon-Helmsley regime backstage, and you got a brief peck thing between Vince and Stephanie. I know it's a father-daughter thing. Why? They're adults. What the fuck? Nobody wanted to see this. Remember when Vince pitched the incestuous thing about being the father of Stephanie's kid? For a few years later? And Stephanie shot it down? Gross. Maybe I'm reading too much into this, but this just wasn't very good. This wasn't very good at all. Ugh. God, I nearly threw up. So anyway, X-Pac with Tori versus Chris Jericho. So Vince, in that earlier segment, before that, said to X-Pac, beat up Chris Jericho. Road Dogg, you and X-Pac will get your tag title shot at some point. Jericho mocks Stephanie, the bottom-feeding trash bag host, up, and he says the word honor, meaning for Stephanie, jump on her, stay on her, honor, Honer. Ah, Canadian English. I'm sorry to all my Canadian followers. I kid. You guys are awesome. I actually think he was just having fun. But anyway, Tori at one point took it hard in the face, meaning she took a drop kick. And Tori, not Tori Wilson, she was in WCW, but you had Tori, the one that faded from view by 2001. And then X-Pac was bleeding again because he had been busted open with the ring bell the previous night, and then he had a bandage on there, and that bandage had come off, and he was just busted. And it was a DQ because Earl got shoved by X-Pac, and he's like, fuck you, I'm going to cause a DQ. And then Road Dogg runs in, and then he gets shoved down. And then we get a big old, schmoz and everything as Jericho and Earl Hebner get held back by a bunch of officials. That was a bit messy. We think of Rocky and Huge Pop. He talks about Backlash, Stone Cold honoring his word, and then says to Vince and everybody, just bring it. And asshole chants to Vince. Vince says Rock will face Shane in the cage for the title. You don't have to pin or submit anybody. You just have to escape the cage. And of course, the deck's going to be stacked against Rock. It always is in this case. Triple H says to Shane, well, that title is mine. You can't get that title. No, it's mine. My. He's Daffy Duck with the genie lamp. Edge and Christian, for the benefit of those with flash photography. There the meme was born before memes ever existed. Rikishi and Shokishi, so Big Show as Rikishi, versus Edge and Christian Open Challenge match for the Tag Team Championship. The ring bell gets brought in by Christian again, and we get a DQ after like 2 minutes. But then double stink faces. Hooray! S.A. Rios with Lita versus Eddie with China's European Championship Backlash rematch. Again, fuck everybody that got the pay-per-view. And this wasn't much of anything. It was a much shorter match on the pay-per-view, and the pay-per-view match was only 8.5 minutes. So China attacks S.A. Rios outside at one point, and Lita's wearing the red evening gown with falsies in there, padded, to mock China, who her and Eddie had just come from the prom the previous, during a Backlash or just before Backlash, and then she had ripped the evening gown off of, or the prom dress off of China. So then Lita got stripped afterwards because Eddie won with that airplane spin maneuver that he had done. And so Lita got exposed. And then would get exposed in 2006, with the whole live sex celebration. Wrestling is weird. So, Tori then spills coffee on Earl Hebner. Cool, or coffee, tea, whatever. And then Benoit versus Taz. And Taz says the mood is about to change. And then here comes Benoit. Boy, those words take on a whole new meaning now. Saturn causes a distraction to Taz, and Benoit wins pretty quickly. And then Hardcore Harley comes down while Taz and Saturn are battling, and he attacks Benoit, hits him with a Falcon Arrow, and then does a double clothesline off the apron onto Saturn and Taz, and then leaves. So then we get Crash Holly being paranoid about 24/7 rule. He can't sleep, can't go to the restaurant, can't do this. Steve Blackman attacks, and we have a match. They battle out into the ring, get some weapons, trash can lids, all that. And since we're in Baltimore, the Baltimore Ravens, couple of the Baltimore Ravens, at the time at least, be weird if they were playing now, because that'd be 20 years later. The 20-year veterans do happen in the NFL, somehow, despite that context for. But anyway, the XFL gets mentioned. Oh, that wouldn't happen in the XFL because a couple of them try to pin Crash Holly for the Hardcore Championship. And then he runs off. And then we get Rock vs. Shane, WWE Championship in a steel cage. Pat Patterson, special guest referee, Vince, Triple H, Stephanie, and Gerald Briscoe for what he's worth, not much of anything, at ringside. And Pat Patterson, of course, at one point tries to take advantage of a younger man from behind in a prone position. And no, I'm not saying that because Pat Patterson's gay. I'm saying that because Pat Patterson has pretty much, not just allegedly, but has assaulted men. And some wrestlers have had to do things to keep their job, and they've had to do things with Patterson. So I don't care that Pat Patterson's gay. Good for him. Be who you are. Just don't be a fucking creep, and don't be an assaulter, and don't be a goddamn piece of shit like Pat Patterson apparently is. So anyway, Vince gets stomped at one point when he tries to get into the cage, and this is all about the numbers advantage and Rock having to fight back against everybody. There was a stick being poked in the cage, and then Rock gets the stick and, breaks it over Shane's back and all this stuff. And Shane gets thrown off the cage at one point. The cage door into Rock's head. Earl Hebner comes down. Well, Triple H comes in, and he's fighting, despite his arm being in a sling, he's fighting against Rock. And then Earl Hebner comes down, shoves Gerald Briscoe into the cage. Still better move than Wes Briscoe ever did in the ring. And then Rock eventually escapes the cage and wins. And it was a mess, but you know what? It was a fun mess. There was a nice cohesion to the whole goddamn show, despite the fact that a lot of the matches barely went maybe 8 minutes. I think that main event went 8 minutes, 9 minutes tops. You can do short matches and do stuff with a whole bunch of run-ins if you have a point to it. And not just be like WCW in 2000 where you just throw out a whole bunch of pieces and just throw everybody against the goddamn wall and see what happened. And what sticks is a bunch of bullshit. This was a fun episode, though. So once again, thank you, Robert Thurman. Thank you very much for the suggestion. And drop your thoughts in the comments and your suggestions for other retro reviews. And this goes for anybody. Once again, can't promise I can get to everything, but I will do what I can to honor your requests. So, agree, disagree, what I said. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Retlin. I'll see you soon.